As journalists and television hosts, scripts are a lifeline. Each newscast, each story, it all revolves around a script.
But now it's time to go unscripted. That means we're not just going off script, we're throwing out the script altogether.
Each week, we're joined by fellow Farm Journal hosts and editors to peel back the layers on stories we've shared throughout the week.
Unscripted. It's real, it's raw, it's entertaining, and it's your chance to meet the personalities behind the personalities. I'm Tyne Morgan.
And I'm Clinton Griffiths. Welcome to Unscripted.
And Tyne, we always say entertaining in that open, and I'm always like, man, that's a lot to live up to. I guess I'm going to bring my A game today.
Well, I think just with entertaining, it's just not having a filter, which I think we have accomplished throughout doing this podcast for a couple of years now.
Hey, you know what time it is? You know, or season it is.
Harvest time, Tyne.
Oh, I thought you were going to say pumpkin spice latte. No.
Oh, no, we talked about, I will eat it, but I don't like to drink it. Like there is a clear difference. Are you not the same?
I mean, I'll try anything once. I mean, I'm not against it. I'm okay with it. I don't like sit there outside the store when the first day they open and, wear a flannel and, go get it. But,
if I do recall, your jam is a shamrock shake.
I'm not I am equal opportunity. I will like anything, I'm good. I'm game with most things. There's a few things I don't like. I don't like mushrooms on pizza. Other than that, I'm a pretty easy guy.
What?
Yeah, well, I know. Hey, no, what I was going to say is it's football season, and I was hoping that you might have a fantasy football team name that you wanted to share, like a sweet child of Mahomes, to a legit to quit, something like that.
No, because what I have learned is there's only one spouse in a household that can do a fantasy football league without causing arguments, drama. And so that spouse is James. He participated in his fantasy football league draft this past weekend. And apparently his team name this year is Swift Engagement.
Oh, I see what he did there. Maybe it's like a Breece Hall and Oates or something like that. But no, a Swift Engagement with the Kansas City Chiefs there. Mm-hmm. That's been big news. Tyne.
Good. I was with some coworkers when it happened in Kansas City, and it's great for Kansas City. Listen, I love living. We live in a small town outside of Kansas City, but I just tell people it's Kansas City because that's the only town you know. Anyway, it's great for business, Clinton. It is great for business. It's great for the city. Sure. It is not great if you are a Chiefs fan and you want to go to the game and find affordable tickets. No, it wasn't always affordable, but now with all the Swifties that are going to try to get their glimpse of Taylor. It's not affordable at all.
They've been pretty good too, which helps with the old ticket sales. So that, there's something to go watch, which makes it exciting. That hasn't always been the case.
But you know what other time it is, Clinton? It is harvest time. And harvest time.
Harvest time.
Yep. It's picked up around here pretty quickly. This crop is maturing pretty quickly. And that's what we saw on Crop Tour was a crop that was maturing quickly. But apparently since a Crop Tour, it's really been on a fast pace to maturity. And I think corn yields around here, from what I've heard, are pretty good. Disease, trying to figure out all of that, since that's the headline that we saw on Crop Tours. Just, the corn crop is plagued with disease, especially in areas that typically don't deal with southern rust, like northern Iowa and southern Michigan. But soybeans, Clinton, that's the big question mark, because we have had such a dry August.
But I will say, Crop Tour, those soybeans look pretty good. Pod counts were strong, but of course they have to finish. That's always the case, right? We got to get them through August. We got to get them into September. We got to fill those pods out. We got to finish the crop.
Pod counts were there. I was just shocked on how dry Ohio was. And now coming back home from Crop Tour, how visibly dry things are here after we had such a wet July, like the 12th, the wettest July on record or something. But we are now seeing, we had the driest August on record for some areas in the Eastern Corn Belt. But, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to soybeans. And so today, we had to bring in a heavy hitter.
Heavy hit. Oh, yeah. Went to the professional ranks here to pick up a big time name to join us today on Unscripted.
That's right. We're not playing arena football. We are in the NFL today. Okay.
NFL. Let's bring in our NFL.
We drafted
QB1
soybeans himself, Mr. Steve Censky.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining us on Unscripted. Really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much, Clinton, Tyne. Thank you. And I'm glad to be making it in the big time here.
Absolutely. Hey, on Crop Tour, we talked a lot about the quality of the soybean crop, the really great pod counts. To be honest, the soybean diseases were probably less than what we've seen in corn for sure.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from folks about the quality of the crop this year?
Yeah, I'm hearing overall looking really good. But what you had just mentioned, it's dry. Large parts of the country need a rain. We still don't, we have a little bit of rain here in the forecast, but to finish strong, soybeans could still use a good drink, and that would make a big difference, I think, on yield.
Yeah, it's not just the soils that need a drink. I mean, when you think about the Mississippi River and those levels causing some concern, which is, like I said, it's so shocking because we went from such a wet July to now a dry August. And I know, the Ohio River really feeds into the Mississippi River, and that's what dictates those levels, St. Louis south. But, are there conversations happening? I mean, are there concerns about the river levels right now?
There are concerns. We're hearing, obviously that barges are starting to light load, and so that reduces. That adds shipping cost as well. And as you guys know, it's at exactly the wrong time. This would be the time that you want your shipping costs to be lower, but it is happening at a very unfortunate time.
Well, an ASA and others have invested so much in really dredging, doing a lot of work on the Mississippi to kind of help with the draft levels and be able to ship that crop. Thank goodness that work has been done. Otherwise, it would be a different story, right?
Yeah, it certainly would be. And that's why, we've been from the American Soybean Association, as well as others, have just really strongly supported the Corps of Engineers, their operations and maintenance budget for dredging, some of the blasting that they have to do to remove some of the rock pinnacles that are there at the bottom. And I have to give credit. It was, as you guys will remember, it was a few years ago that there were some real bottlenecks there. And I would say over the last few years, while we've had some low water levels on the Mississippi, I think the Corps has managed it pretty well, and they've been able to keep traffic flowing, but it still means light loading barges.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Well, I really want to dive into our first segment. So with that, let's hop over and let's talk some tea. How long? I know you had a little hiatus. You were with USDA for a little bit, but how many years have you been with the American Soybean Association?
I've been with the American Soybean Association for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
I started my career out in Washington, D.C., and as you mentioned, I've been out there, served at the department on 3 different occasions, but been with the American Soybean Association for 26 years. Started out as the director of international marketing for ASA before becoming CEO.
I didn't know that. Well,
Yeah.
okay, 26 years, and you've been in agriculture. You've seen a lot. Would you say this is the worst that you've seen it financially, economically for soybean farmers?
It is among the worst. I was serving on Capitol Hill, working for Senator Jim Abner from South Dakota during the 1980s farm crisis, and that was a very difficult time for farmers as well as those that were in agriculture and can remember that time. That was a very difficult time. Of course, things got pretty bad during the 2018 trade war, and of course, that's when I was at the Department of Agriculture serving as deputy secretary. And thankfully, we had the support of the president to provide some economic assistance to try to help U.S. soybean farmers and other farmers survive through that period. But it's tough, and we're continuing to hear. I can hear it in the stress in our members' voices, our members of our board of directors, that they're really concerned right now. And some saying, hey, if things don't turn around, if we don't get markets back, or if we don't, get economic assistance, which is not our first choice, we'd rather have the markets, and we'd rather have the China market. But they say this could be my last year in farming, and that's pretty scary.
Mr. Censky, several things to unpack there. I want to go back to that 2018 trade war. You're there at the USDA. You're working for the first Trump administration. In the middle of this, obviously, you've had this long career in farming and in the soybean, and that has been and you started in international trade. I mean, that is like what the pinnacle of success stories, right? Is soybeans to China has been. I mean, that's our story as far as like ways that we found success here. Talk to me about those moments and during those trade negotiations. What was that like? What did you see? Anything interesting from that time that you took away?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time, and obviously, we at the department, understand the importance of exports to American agriculture. On average, about 20% of agriculture production is exported overseas for a lot of commodities like soybeans. It's much higher, where we export over 50% of our crop, with China being the largest customer. And so we knew during the first, trade policies and the trade war with China, that could have a very bad impact on farmers. And so the president was determined to try to address some of China's trading practices, their theft of intellectual property, their subsidies to try to dominate technologies of the future. And so China retaliated. We had retaliatory tariffs in place. And that's when, we went to the president and said, we need economic assistance for farmers because they're on the tip of the spear. China knows that. They know that President Trump's support comes from the American heartland, comes from American agriculture, and that's an easy way to retaliate and to try to put pain on the economy and pain on his constituents. And so we saw that. And so that's what drove, us to having the assistance package, the market facilitation payment programs that were implemented at that time. I will say, while those programs that we had, the market facilitation payments, the MFP payments, help keep folks in business. They are a mandate. They stop the blood loss. They help farmers survive until the next year, but it's not a replacement for markets. And no farmer wants to be dependent on getting his or her income from the government or from the mailbox rather than from the marketplace. And the other part of it is that even if you have the government that can step in and try to help keep farmers in business, what a trade retaliation like we're having now, where China has a 20% higher tariff on U.S. beans than they do from beans from South America. What that means is that we're not going to sell to China. It means that Brazil is going to expand their production even faster and more than they otherwise would have, because all of that just incentivizes Brazil to expand their production. And that expanded production will carry on and will be here to haunt basically U.S. soybean farmers for years to come, not only in the China market, but in other markets around the world.
You were part of the last administration when the Trump administration made a decision to roll out these MFP payments. And right now you're hearing it from the countryside. You're hearing a strong vocal support of that again. We need some emergency relief. We'll get into it in a minute, but they had a meeting in Arkansas where these farmers said, we will not survive without it. We understand that. But then you have another group that's very vocal saying, wait, if you roll out these payments, they're not going to actually go to farmers. It just goes to these input suppliers. You're just making it worse if we see some of these payments rolled out. Mr. Censky, how difficult of a decision is it to roll out a program like MFP? Obviously, it's not something you do overnight. It's not something that the administration takes lightly, but you've been involved in these conversations. How difficult is it to make this decision, knowing some of the unintended consequences that it could result from?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Tyne. And that is, one of the things is that when you provide economic assistance or any kind of government payments, whether that is through the reference prices and the ARC and PLC programs under the farm programs, Yes, that helps. It helps keep farmers in business. It helps them pay the bills. But longer term, any form of government assistance like that gets capitalized into land rents and land values, and that has consequences as well for farmers. And so, any economist will tell you that. And so that is one of the I guess the takeaways, some of the knowns. You know that, but at the same time, when you have an action that is completely outside of farmers' control, like a trade war and trade retaliation, you don't want to see producers go out of business because of that trade war. And so, in the end, I think that's where the government again stepped in during the 2018-2019 trade war with China. I think unless we can get things turned around with China, we're going to be in that position again.
Okay.
But we have not been publicly calling for another MFP type program. Our priority has been on let's get a deal with China on soybeans, because again, having that market is what soybean farmers want. And then you also, by restoring, getting rid of the retaliatory tariffs, ideally getting some purchase commitments from China would be like we did under the phase one trade deal with China. That would be great. And that also puts a lid on or a damper on Brazilian expansion. And that has long-term benefits for the U.S. soybean industry as well.
Mr. Censky, I'm trying to figure out the right words to say. Like, how serious is the situation right now? Obviously, we're kind of in this window where we usually expect China to come in and make some purchases, and they haven't yet. They haven't been in our market yet. Obviously, we're having a back and forth on this trade deal. How serious is that situation this time versus what you saw back in 2018?
I think it's more serious today,
Interesting.
and that's because prices were higher back in 2018 and 2019. We were starting out, I think farmers were starting out from a better position. Not only did you have prices higher, but your inputs were not as expensive. And so farmers, I think, were a little bit better able then, or not just a little, I think substantially better able to withstand some of the negative impacts that you have from a trade war and trade retaliation. Today, that situation is very different. As you know, and every farmer knows, input costs are really sky high. Fertilizer equipment and parts cost have almost doubled over the last 5 years.
Right.
And then you have other input, seed and crop protection products that are still high. And so you add that to the current situation, and I think it makes it much worse.
We had Dan Bossy of Ag Resource Company on the show last weekend, and he said that from every conversation he's having, Chinese importers are still being instructed by the Chinese government to not buy U.S. soybeans. So the situation we're in right now, it's not just, oh, we're going to buy from Brazil. I mean, this is intentional. Do you think this is intentional and intentional in they want to hurt President Trump's support base?
I do think it's intentional. I think it is very true that the Chinese buyers have been instructed not to purchase from the United States. Not only do you have the 20% retaliatory tariffs, that 20% duty that's making U.S. soybeans more expensive compared to Brazilian or Paraguayan or Argentine soybeans. But you also have the political motive. I mean, all the reports that we're hearing, there definitely is a cold shoulder from government officials toward the United States, toward the U.S. government representatives that are in Beijing, and that the buyers have been instructed not to purchase from the United States. They've been stocking up. I mean, the situation, as you know, is pretty concerning. I mean, we had the soybean marketing year that started on September 1. Normally, at this time of year, this goes back to your point, Clinton, that normally at this time of year, China would already have purchased for the months ahead for the marketing year, maybe in between 5 and 12 million metric tons of soybeans. So you're talking 200 to 400 million bushels of soybeans that they would have purchased already that would be on the books. And right now we have zero. And what we're hearing is that they've taken care of their needs for October. They're taking care of their needs for November. And unless we get a trade deal, and it's going to take two, it's going to take both the United States and China that want to get a trade deal. I think they're going to try to see what they can do to eke it out until the new crop soybeans from Brazil come onto the marketplace. We don't want that to happen. I mean, we need that harvest pull. We need to, we're going to have a rush of soybeans that are going to be hitting the market here over the next, 30 to 60 days.
Right.
And we need that pull. And we need that pull not only for the market prices, but also basis. In areas that are very dependent on China. I mean, that basis has really widened, and we're back up to basically the levels that they were during the 2018-2019 trade war.
How concerned are you for harvest? Is that a conversation ASA is having? Other leaders in the soybean industry? What's the conversation? What's the talk?
Yeah, I think they're very concerned about the harvest, about what happens without that harvest pull. And so that's why, from our point, that's why we delivered that Mayday call, last week and the week before to President Trump to say, hey, as you're negotiating with China, tell your negotiators to prioritize a deal with China on soybeans. We're the largest agriculture export commodity, and China's our largest market. And the consequences are really substantial. If we don't get a deal, prices are just going to sink further. Basis is going to widen further. There's going to be storage issues in parts of the country where you have big crops of both soybeans and record corn coming. Mm-hmm. I think, as you know, soybeans don't store very well on the ground. And so, you're going to have to store those soybeans in bins or in commercial storage. And that means maybe more corn that ends up on the ground.
Yeah, we Farm Journal's Michelle Rook, as she reported last week. I mean, there are areas in North Dakota where farmers may not even be able to take their soybeans. They're already seeing with basis. You talk about the widening basis, cash prices under $9, which is just. I mean, Mr. Censky, I talked to a farmer last week that said, I'm just looking at what do I plant next year that can cause me to lose the least amount of equity. Like that's the conversations that farmers are having right now. But you were deputy secretary under the last administration. You spoke with this deputy secretary, Vaden, under this administration last week during the Farm Progress Show. It was a lot of headlines about how, USDA says that they're exploring possible bridge payments for producers. You said, we're not advocating for payments. We want trade. We want deal. We want the markets to do their job. But can you tell us about the conversation that you had with Deputy Secretary Vaden? Is there anything that really did not get reported that you found fascinating last week when you had the chance to talk to him one-on-one?
Well, I've known Deputy Secretary Vaden because we served together in the first Trump administration. He was general counsel while I was deputy secretary, so we know each other well, and had a very frank conversation about the situation and about the need to get a deal with China. And that's first and foremost. We also, from our standpoint, I can relay some of the things that we conveyed at least. Whereas also the need to finalize the renewable volume obligations. We need to do that. But again, while the proposed RVOs under the RFS for biomass-based diesel are very positive, and that's very good news. And we can talk about that maybe in a bit, but that still doesn't make up for the loss of the China market. And we talked about some of the other trade deals that have been announced. And again, those are good deals, I think, for American agriculture, whether that's, with Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, other countries, but those in the EU, but those countries are already big buyers of U.S. soybeans. And none of them, or even all of them put together, don't equate to a China for the U.S. soybean farmer. And so, again, you just can't discount the importance of China as a buyer. I mean, they import more soybeans than the rest of the world combined.
Mm.
And so you can't make up the loss of the China market by gaining a little bit here or there.
One of the conversations we had after 2018 was, hey, we have to diversify. We have to find new markets for our products. We've got to create some homegrown demand here. And it seemed like the biofuels or the bio-based diesels, the sustainable aviation fuels might be a pathway for that. And we did see some investment in some facilities and things like that. Where do we stand today on those projects? I, I feel like the last thing I've heard is that some of them are a little bit on hold. And if so, what are we waiting on?
Yeah, I think everyone's waiting for certainty. And
Hmm.
you're absolutely right. After there were, some a few years ago, there was 3 years ago, there was some good indications and some investments in the RFS and some growing volumes. And so we saw announcements to expand soybean crush capacity by over 30%. And then the 24 and 25 volumes under the RFS came out, and they were very anemic, very weak, undershot what the capacity and the production capacity was. Some of those projects went forward, and so I think we're still on track to maybe expand production by about 25%. But what about that other 5%? And I think those projects that are on hold, if we can finalize the volumes that have been proposed by the EPA, and they propose to expand biomass-based diesel volumes by 67% from 2025 levels. So really historic announcements about the volumes that really give potential here for the biomass-based diesel industry. So we're talking biodiesel and renewable diesel. I think you could see that 5% come back onto the boards and could see that construction take place. But right now, until those are finalized, I don't think we're going to see that. So people are in a wait and see. They've been disappointed in the past when final RVO numbers came out, and I think they want to see those finalized. And so that's one of the things that we talked to the Deputy Secretary about, was the need to finalize those proposed volumes. Not only do you get the proposed volumes that are aggressive, but also there was an important provision in there that discounts the RIN values for imported feedstocks and imported finished fuels. And that's really important because, as you know, we've seen just a massive increase in imported used cooking oil, supposed used cooking oil from China and other countries. That some of that supposedly is palm oil, as well as Brazilian beef tallow being imported. And so we think it's really important to discount and provide an incentive to use our homegrown fuels and feedstocks.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just about to ask about used cooking oil and that
I
provision.
like the
in order-
quotes.
Yeah,
I think the air quotes are perfect.
used. I mean, you can't trust what China says, but used cooking oil. So, I mean, that's a really important point. But when you had that conversation with Deputy Secretary Vaden, was there any indication
No,
when we
that's
could see those finalized numbers? Because it's been talk. It was really good news for the markets there for a short bit. And then we're waiting, and we're still waiting and waiting on that certainty, like you said. So any indication when that could be released?
Well, no, he did not mention any date, but Administrator Lee Zeldin has said that he wants to meet their statutory obligations or to announce them by October 31st of this year. So that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that they can finalize them by October. And then that would provide certainty. And then the other aspect of it that we didn't talk about is that we also had some good changes to the 45Z, the tax incentive for biofuels. And we need that guidance that's finalized by the Treasury as well, so that everyone knows what the rules of the road are. They can see what the mandates are going to be for volumes. They can see with certainty what the rules are going to be for the tax incentive. And then I think people can make their investment decisions, and then people can turn back on the plants.
How long have we been waiting on that? the guidance on 45Z? Are we going on 2 years?
We are going on 2 years.
How do you feel about that that part of this whole piece of the puzzle? Uh, Obviously, we don't have the final guidance there, but are we leaning in the right direction? What's your take on what you know so far?
Yeah, on the 45Z
Yeah, on the 45Z
specifically.
piece.
Yeah, I think we really are, and there were some changes made to that we pushed hard for and pushed Congress to make in the 45Z legislation. Number one was to extend it
Mhm.
because it was going to be expiring in 2028, and so it's been extended for a couple of years. And then second thing is that we pushed to make the 45Z tax credit only available to fuels made with U.S. feedstocks. And we think that was really important as well, because again, of that massive surge that
Mhm.
we saw of used cooking oil and Brazilian beef tallow that have been frankly incentivized by some of like California's low carbon fuel standard that really reward those types of products over and above domestic products. And so that was really important. And so we put a North America ring fence, as we talk about, around that to say that only feedstocks that are produced in North America and fuels made from feedstocks produced in North America can qualify for the tax incentive. That's number one. And then number two, we removed the indirect land use change penalty. And this gets a little bit wonky, but basically, it has been an arbitrary calculation made to say that if we produce or use more biofuels in this country, that incentivizes production around the world. And that was a penalty against our domestic producers. We're charged that indirect land use change penalty, but foreign producers and foreign fuels were not. And so we were successful in eliminating that. And that had the effect of basically doubling the value of the tax credit value for either biodiesel or renewable diesel made from soybean oil.
Hmm. We got into the weeds, but that is
I like it.
I mean, it's good to pull back the curtain and see. But just like you said, we're just waiting. It's a wait and see mode, and we need something. We need some good news. Exports, I think, to others, soybean exports on the books to others other than China has been pretty good. But we need some wins. All right, let's wrap things up by going to our next segment real quick. What the Sigma? All right, we will start with you, Ms. Smith. See a lot of headlines, read a lot of headlines, and I write a lot of headlines for you.
That-
Something that you've read recently that just really got under your skin and made you
Well, I think one of them is, of course, the headlines on the Maha report. There's been, I think, a lot of, as you know, that ASA was very strong in criticizing the first Maha report that came out.
Mhm.
We've seen a draft of the second one, an earlier draft, and it had some very positive changes. But we're not celebrating yet because it hasn't been released. And until it is released, we're not going to celebrate. We've seen some reports, by folks that talk about that the Maha report has sold out to big ag or big food. That's a headline that bothers me because that's not the case at all. But what we did, we're successful, at least we believe, under the draft we've seen, is getting the Maha Commission to follow the science that recognizes that the crop production tools, the pesticides, the herbicides that are used by farmers are thoroughly evaluated by the EPA. They study the heck out of them to make sure that there's no environmental or human um, uh, negative consequences there.
Mm.
And then they're approved for use. And the first MAHA report, we think, very needlessly raised concerns about common crop protection tools that are used by farmers, and almost with the suggestion that, well, let's all go organic and we'll be able to feed everyone. Again, organic is great. It's a great segment of the market. We want to supply those consumers that want organic product, but to think that we're going to produce food economically and safely on a broad scale without managing weeds and pests is just a pipe dream.
Well, and it's not like a farmer wants to use more inputs. You look at fertilizer
No,
prices.
not right
You look
now.
at even chem prices for next year. I mean, all of the prices that I've seen in quotes farmers are getting, they're not going down, they're going up. And so farmers aren't wanting to use more of anything, but you can't turn that switch off overnight. I mean, this is one where we would love to use less, but we still have to have a production level where we're actually going to make a profit. And you have to use these tools. And so, I mean, do you feel like the MAHA Commission understands that these tools are valuable, but it's not that farmers are wanting to use more. It's out of a necessity at this point, really.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right, Tyne. And I think there's been some good education there because, again, the folks that were writing the Maha Commission, they know nothing about agriculture. And that's been part of the process that we've had, is to go in to meet with them, to share that information, that story with them, that farmers, inputs cost money. And farmers don't want to use, they want to use only what's necessary and only to the extent that's necessary. I think one of the things that really helped, some of the Maha folks, including Kelly Means, who's basically one of the chief authors of the Maha Commission reports, had an opportunity to go out and do a farm visit where he got to see precision agriculture in use and see areas of a field where you don't control weeds, but also got to see where, there's some new technology that's coming, precision spraying tools, other things that are really important and that allow farmer to use less. The caveat is, of course, not every, we know that, the precision sprayers, the see and spray type sprayers, those are expensive, and not every farmer has those. Over time, I think we're going to see more transition to that, and especially if we can have some support to help farmers afford that, maybe through the Farm Bill or through some other programs and acts that have been introduced. But I think they saw the possibility and know that farmers can't just pivot overnight.
Yeah. Well, it is it's a big puzzle, and I thought that the point you made about education, I think, is a really important one. One of the sides of this whole conversation we've also heard a lot about is the seed oil and whether it's healthy or not healthy. You talked about headlines this week. This is a headline I saw this week in the Telegraph. Which is better for heart health, butter or seed oils? Here's what the science says. And it says, experts say the cooking staple is being mistakenly demonized. And so we're starting to see some of that science and some of the research start to trickle out there. And I'm sure those are conversations you're having as well.
They are conversations, and I would say, at least in the draft that we've seen, we didn't see demonizing of seed oils like we did in the first report, and I think that's an improvement. But we also have some rulemaking going on that they're taking a look, and I think what is concerning is, what is, I think, not concerning, irritating, frustrating, maddening, is when we have seen Health and Human Services Secretary Kennedy go out and praise, restaurant chains that are switching from seed oils to beef tallow, celebrating companies that are saying, advertising no seed oils in their packaging, because once again, that's not what science says. Mm-hmm. Science says actually the opposite, that by using seed oils, and these are long-term studies that have been done, you have significantly lower chances of heart disease, cancer, and premature death.
Good. Yeah.
Well, I think the The headline, and it's not even a headline that I saw, but it was just a conversation that I've had. I mentioned earlier, Arkansas farmers, they actually had a meeting this week at a church, and the outpour, I mean, it was standing room only. And I
Mm.
know, Mr. Sinsky, you actually, I think you said Brad Doyle had sent you some videos from that conversation, and just these farmers just heartfelt of, I cannot survive this, and I don't know if I'll be able to survive another year. And an Arkansas farmer told me, but there's multiple banks that he's spoken to, and the general consensus is 30 to 40% of farmers may not farm next year based on the economics today. And as I talk to farmers in the South, in the North, we talk about Farm Bill and there's some conversations, but in the South, I mean, it is every farmer I talk to says we need a farm bill. Stephen, do you think, will we ever have a farm bill again? Or are we just going to
It
continue to
feels like,
piecemeal this thing
yeah, it feels
up
like
to
that's
the
the
finish line?
conversation. Will we ever have it
Will we,
again?
or are we just going to have some of the, like we saw in the one big beautiful bill, we saw increase in reference prices and things like that. Is that how we do it, or do you think we actually will have a farm bill again?
Hope springs eternal. I mean, you can't be involved in agriculture and not be an optimist, right?
I like that. That's good.
I think that I don't discount. I know I've seen those folks prognostications that we'll never have another farm bill again. I don't know whether I that's a possibility, but I don't know whether I buy into that. I think that there still is the desire to try to put together a farm bill. Certainly, we're hearing that from House Ag Committee Chair G.T. Thompson, Senate Ag Chair Senator Bozeman are talking about wanting to do a farm bill, having some sort of markup. And I think there will be, at least getting out of committee, at least some Democrats that are willing to support that. I know that there's just, a lot of tough feelings among Democrats about the cuts to the SNAP program. And that's going to make it hard to get a lot of votes on the House floor. But I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that if we could get farm bills out of both committees this fall, obviously it's not going to happen by September 30th when the current farm bill that's been extended twice already expires. But if we could get some action by Congress this fall by the committees, I think that there's still a possibility of having some sort of end of year package that's moving, that a skinny farm bill or a farm bill 2.0 could be tacked onto, that reauthorizes the programs and makes deals with some of the other issues that weren't dealt with in the budget reconciliation or the one big beautiful bill, which took care of a lot of the costly things, like in increases in reference prices, improvements in crop insurance, et cetera.
Give me a couple of things in a farm bill that you're focused on, that ASA would like to advocate for, if we can get one to get to Congress for a vote.
Well, I mean, obviously, we would like to see. There's reauthorization of some of the conservation programs that occurs in the Farm Bill, of some of the research programs that happens as well. That still needs to happen. You have to prevent. You have to pass something so that permanent law doesn't go into effect on January 1st, and we get into the so-called dairy cliff and the marketing quotas for other commodities, things like that. So that has to be suspended. But there's some other interesting provisions in there. One of them is the Ag Labeling Uniformity Act, that would basically prevent the kind of states from requiring pesticide manufacturers to put labels, cancer warning labels on their product, when the EPA has said that there's no risk of cancer from this product. And basically, it would provide to say whatever the federal government label says, that takes preeminence and prevents basically, a state from putting that kind of label on a product, because that could be, very bad. And I think we're just seeing a proliferation of even more lawsuits, like we've seen, for instance, against glyphosate, see that spreading to other products. The other thing that's I know that we want to be supportive of, and it's a big priority for our livestock producers, especially our pork industry, is dealing with California's Proposition 12 as well.
Mm,
Oh, I hadn't even
interesting.
thought about that on from your
Yeah.
perspective. Like, yeah, we need to, this is industry wide. We need to take care of it. Okay. My last question for you is
He's like, "Are you sure?" The last
I
question.
know, this is my last one. Um, what's your message for farmers? I mean, when you talk to
Yeah,
farmers right
that's
now,
good.
there's a lot of frustration when it comes to trade and the impact they're having and just this hardline stance. But yet there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of still support for the president and some of the things that he's doing on the regulation front, some of the things he's helped get across the finish line on tax reform, things like that. There's a lot of hope, but there's a lot of frustration as well. As someone who's talked directly to this administration, to members of this administration, and seeing kind of the wait and see pattern we're in for a lot of this. What do you want farmers to know right now?
I would say tell your elected representatives, whether it's your senators, your congressmen, use social media to send a message to the administration and to Congress that we need to deal with China. I still think that is the most important thing. Yes, I know that there's calls out there for economic aid, but I think we need to keep the focus on getting a deal with China um, for the long-term benefits of American agriculture. And we need to have that obviously for soybean producers. So, Mr. President, as you negotiate with China, prioritize a deal on soybeans with China.
That's about as clear as you can say it. I think, I think the entire industry is sitting back. We're all watching to see what's going to happen. We know that harvest is kicking off down south and it's moving north in a hurry. And obviously, I know the administration knows the importance of that, and I'm sure they're working as hard as they can. But all eyes are on this next few weeks as we try to balance it all together and make it all work. So it's a big job. You've been in the middle of it at least the last time, and you know what work goes in there. So it's just a lot to try to sort out, and all of our farmers are going to try to support them as long as they can. But obviously, it's the situation is getting serious.
Yeah.
So
And know that we at the American Soybean Association are fighting hard for their priorities, whether that's international trade or domestic uses as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a little bit of time to talk to us and to talk to our audience and to kind of just let people know your experiences and your perspective on things because it's important to get the word out and people know that there's good work happening behind the scenes, but they may not see it every day.
Well, thank you very much, Clinton, Tyne. It's been great to join you here today. Really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us.
absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
it's a heavy conversation,
Oh, it is. You're right, Tyne. It's a very heavy conversation.
but it's nice to know we have someone like a Steven Censky that's sitting at the helm of ASA and it understands that it is like this. It is a dire situation right now for farmers across the country,
Mhm, mhm.
some areas more than others.
Yep,
And he's pushing for that. But I thought it was fascinating because I have seen so many calls and so many pushes for market facilitation program payments or some type of emergency aid. And I thought it was
mhm.
interesting that he made it clear that is not our ask right now.
Right.
Yes, it may be needed, but that is not our ask right now. What we really need is a trade deal
Mhm.
to let the markets, let the markets work. And so I thought that clarification was interesting.
I the challenging thing, and I think we all know this, right? And China knows this. I'm not going to say anything that's going to let the cat out of the bag. Everybody knows this. Is that it's our harvest season. They're in the market to buy beans. We need to sell some beans, and like those two things make for tough negotiations because we want them to hurry up and buy, and they're like, well, maybe we're not going to buy. And so,
Well,
like it's a hard it's a hard negotiation for our guys to get done.
and it's not just buying soybeans. You
No.
also have fertilizer prices. They are
Oh,
holding back
absolutely.
some supply, and that is partially why we are
Mhm,
seeing some of
mhm.
these fertilizer prices so high is because they are holding back supply and they are holding back supply intentionally. And so it's some of those
Mm.
things that we know is going on. And it seems like farmers are we're caught in the center again, because what is a bargaining chip? I mean, you
Mhm.
look at agriculture, a big part of President Trump's support base, and China is hitting us where it hurts sometimes the
Yeah.
hardest, and it seems to be agriculture. So it's just unfortunate we're in this situation again.
I
Um,
did, Tyne, I did think the conversation about the domestic, because we've had, how many stories have we written about
about
increasing
reducing our
domestic
reliance on
demand?
China.
Well, right, to kind of reduce our reliance on China, local domestic demand. So I thought the conversation that we had about, where we stand on expansion,
Right.
where we're waiting on these RVOs to be finalized. We're looking at October 31st. The 45Z guidance, that's been 2 years in the making. We
Yep.
want to get that done,
Yep.
so maybe we can get a few of the pieces of the puzzle. But I think at the end of the day, Mr. Censky makes it clear, like, there's really the only market, the biggest market out there for us right now is China. And that's the one that moves the needle the most.
Which is why we wrote the story. Is China the only hope for soybean prices? And
Mhm, mhm.
unfortunately, like Mr. Sinsky said, there's a lot
Yeah.
of things domestically that could help us, continue to reduce our reliance on someone like China. And
Mhm.
as this president has America First policy in place, what is one way we can build up our policy domestically to help farmers? And he mentioned RVOs, he mentioned 45. I mean, there's several ways, but they are a giant. They are a giant, and you cannot replace a giant overnight, and we are feeling that right now. But the thing is, it's not just soybeans. We have corn prices that are low.
No,
We have cotton
absolutely.
prices that are horrific.
Yep.
Rice prices aren't, they're not the I
They're
mean,
not
so you
great.
go I mean, I was in California. You look at almond prices are awful.
Mhm.
There's more than just corn and soybeans and cotton right now, that are really causing this economic hardship. And so it's a frank conversation, but it sounds like this administration is hearing it. So at least that I think that's probably what stokes hope within some farmers is,
Yeah. No, I think
it's
that's a good
overnight.
point.
Could something happen? Could something be on the horizon that we just don't know, and they're not showing their cards yet, that could help agriculture here in 2025? And that's what we're hopeful about.
Well, and I think that's a really great point, Time, because every indication I have, and I think you probably feel the same, is as we're reporting on these things and we're talking to industry leaders, they are getting a chance to make the case to the administration. They're getting a chance to be in front of them, to talk to them, to like share their information. We heard that about the Maha report from Mr. Sinsky there as well. Like they've had a chance to go in and present their side. And so I think it's not just a closed door of like, hey, we're just going to handle this. Don't worry about it. I think there's a recognition that farmers need to share, how this is impacting them and that they are getting a chance to do that with this administration. So, from that standpoint, I think that's good. Now, whether or not it all gets sorted out, I think that remains to be seen. We've got 30 to 60 days here to try to get that done.
All right. Well, it is fall.
You gonna
Harvest is
go get you a
happening.
pumpkin spice latte?
No, I do not like those. I told you that. Now, give me a pumpkin spice cake with like cream cheese on the top. Oh,
Okay,
I'm
okay,
in.
all
I
right,
am in.
all right.
This is
You make pumpkin bread? You a big fan of that?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then next week we have it's homecoming next week for us. And so we have a big
Ah,
homecoming soup and chili lunch, which by the way, I was making the graphic for it this past weekend and realized it's 50 years that War has
wow,
had this
interesting.
lunch. And so we just carry on that tradition. It's not our
Yeah.
doing, we just are helping carry it on. And yes,
Random,
there will be
random.
pumpkin cake on the table.
Hey, listen, random chili story. I knew a lady once that won every chili cook-off she ever entered, and her secret ingredient, pumpkin.
What?
I'm just saying.
Like,
I'm
is it a
just telling
lady?
you.
Is
I'm
it
just telling you. It was her secret. I'm not gonna tell you who it is because she'd be mad at me. She always added
so
a
she
can of
won't
pumpkin.
so she won't share?
Well, I don't
Because
know, maybe.
I need a
Maybe
chili
she will.
recipe. Or
Yeah,
so
you need
or
something new, do you?
Well, no, our chili maker said he can't help this year, and so I'm trying to figure out how we come up with all this
There's so many
chili for
ways to
next
make
year.
chili. It's like,
There's so many ways, and so that's the problem is if you have a
I
bunch of
know.
different recipes and then you have a bunch of different anyway, it's my problem to figure out. I will figure it out.
I'm sure people
Um,
will be sending you chili recipes on here on
I do, I need,
Unscripted.
like, the best I mean, I have
You can get
one.
8,000 of them.
I have one that's pretty spicy, and so when I used to
Mhm,
make it
mhm.
when we lived
That
in South
doesn't
Bend,
surprise me.
Indiana, and I would make it for James's coworkers, they informed me it was too spicy.
Oh, well,
Those
you
Northerners
spent
don't
some
like
time in
spice,
Texas.
Clinton.
You did spend some time in Texas for a while. I'm
Yeah,
sure you
those
had a little
Northerners
heat to
do
it.
not like spice.
I have no idea. Bell peppers are hot. Like it's just, I'm just saying.
And I'm not mad at him. It's fine. That's just not my household. It's like he's adding in the hot sauce and everything, to make it spicier. But he did turn 40 this year, and so I'm not sure how much his gridiron stomach's going to be able to handle that much.
Oh, here we go. I have a
Things
challenge
change.
accepted.
Things
Challenge accepted. He's
Things
going to go for it now.
change.
All right. Well, this has been a heavy episode, but an interesting conversation. I really appreciate Mr. Censky spending some time with us because I think everybody's just trying to figure out what's next. And so, I think we just don't know yet. And, some days that's just how it is.
No, and it was nice for him to go, to allow time for him to go into detail because so many times we're interviewing him and the headline is what it is, but you're not able to really take a deep dive into some of those detailed conversations.
Sure.
And he did. He went into the weeds on some things and I appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Tyne. Well, we'll do it again. And we'll see everybody soon here in a couple of weeks on Unscripted.
Yeah, until next time, live your life unscripted.
Thanks for joining us. You can dive into more of Unscripted on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Clinton Griffiths.
And I'm Tyne Morgan. From all of us here at Farm Journal, keep it real as you live your life unscripted.
Unscripted is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.